Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This is my review for The Flash, Season 1, Episode 18, All-Star Team-Up, and I could not wait for this episode. I mean, after the cliffhanger of the last episode, we've been on a hiatus for 2 weeks, I could not wait to see how this was all going to play out. I couldn't wait to see how Barry was going to react to, knowing about Wells' identity, and how he was going to keep that secret from everyone, who he was going to tell, what was going to happen with this revelation, and everything was just great about this episode, because this episode was all about how do we move on from that? Like, how do we tell people about that? Who can we tell? Who can you tell? Who can you tell about this? Who's gonna believe us? Who's gonna not believe us? And I just thought overall that was a really interesting thing that we saw. I definitely enjoyed seeing that, and of course, also Felicity and Ray were back. Now, while they were in this episode, they were definitely more of a side characters, but I didn't feel like they were underused. I can understand if someone thinks they were underused. I'm not going to say they were underused, because the reason they're there is because of what's going to happen in Arrow tomorrow. And honestly, they need to be there for Felicity to give Barry the advice she gives him. And plus, they were so funny in this episode. Honestly, Ray and Felicity were the comic relief of this episode, while usually Cisco is. Because Cisco is going through such a dramatic revelation, we see that, now Ray and Felicity kind of played the comedy in here, and we need that comedy somehow. So having Ray and Felicity, that's why we had them in this episode. So we start off with Eddie and Joe pursuing robbers in their police car, and Joe calls the Flash, who ends their car chase far ahead of schedule. And as Joe and Eddie continue stopping crimes while on patrol, the Flash keeps aiding them in a series of lighthearted moments. And across town, things aren't so cheap for a woman named Lindsay, who Lindsay is played by none other than Emily Kinney, aka Beth from The Walking Dead. And it was really cool to see her on my TV screen again, because of course, last time we saw her, she was Beth, and I thought she did a really good job in this episode. I definitely really liked her character, and I thought she did a really good job here. So she enters her car at night, and when she gets in the car, a swarm of bees come through the vents and sting her to death. And when Joe and Barry investigate the death scene the next morning, Joe asks Barry to run some forensics at Star Labs, and then they discuss Wells. And basically, and I love the line where Cisco's like, bees, please, not bees, anything but bees. I thought that was really funny. But basically, they're then talking about Wells and the revelation that they've made about Wells, and Joe really wants to know if Cisco and Caitlin are in cahoots with the Reverse Flash, because they don't know if, he doesn't know if Cisco and Caitlin knew. We didn't even know if Cisco and Caitlin knew, and basically, Barry doesn't believe what Joe says. He thinks that possibly they might be working with Reverse Flash, and that's why they don't know about his secret, and Barry doesn't believe what Joe says, but Joe warns Barry from telling Cisco and Caitlin about what he knows about Wells, because he's not only their, he's not just their, he's not just their partner, he's their mentor. He's there to mentor them, and if they find out the truth, it could totally mess up everything. So I really like that Joe told Barry that he has to be careful with that, because how are you careful with that, though? Like, how can you not tell your friends about that? Like, Cisco and Kane are his two closest allies. Like, how can he not tell them that the person they're working with is Reverse Flash? I know it's very hard to tell, but how can you not tell someone that? Like, I don't understand how Barry couldn't tell someone that, and I understand Joe doesn't want to tell anyone that, but it just seems really hard not to tell anyone. So at Star Labs, the team goes over possible cause of Lindsay's death, and I love that Cisco is just like, no, not the bees, please, no bees, and kind of reminded me of Nicolas Cage in The Wicker Man, not the bees. If you guys have seen that movie, it's hilarious. You guys know what I'm talking about, but that reminded me of that. But then Felicity appears from Starling City with a surprise visit, and I love that she just, like, literally is just there as a surprise, and she asks Cisco, Caitlin, Wells, and Barry to come outside, and outside we see Ray. He flies down in his Atom suit, and I really like seeing Ray in this Atom suit, because, as I said, I really like what they're doing with his character. Basically, Felicity tells Barry that Ray is her boyfriend, and you can see Barry's look in his face like, oh, shit, because, like, he really had an interest in Felicity. It seemed like they were going to bond, and I do eventually feel like Felicity and Barry, they are going to date, but right now she's with Ray, and I know that she's supposed to be getting back with Oliver, at the end of the season, because we saw that whole we all saw the Felicity sex scene. We know that's going to happen. And you can definitely see that Barry was kind of jealous, and I definitely enjoyed that. So inside the lab, Cisco and Felicity tune up Ray's suit, and Ray proclaims his superhero identity as the Atom, and Wells offers to help Ray improve his suit, but Barry feels reluctant, basically, because, he doesn't even know if he trusts Wells right now, because, of course, Barry's still confused on why would Wells want him to run as fast as he is if he wants to destroy him. He doesn't understand this. So basically, sensing his hesitance, Felicity asks him to talk things over with Barry at Jitter's Coffee, and of course, Felicity has no idea what's going on. She's trying to tell Barry that the best thing to do is to go to, Jitter's Coffee, and Felicity is completely out of line in what's going on here. So basically, across town, Iris visits Eddie at his office, and sensing Eddie's recent distance, Iris asks him what he's hiding from her, and of course, we know what he's hiding, because now he knows, of course, Barry's secret about him being the Flash, and I really like what they did with this, because it made their storyline a lot more interesting. It's not just Iris loves Barry, but, Barry loves Iris, but Iris doesn't love Barry back. It's not that. It's not just unrequited love, and I really like this storyline. It's a lot stronger than what they were doing, because honestly, what they were doing with Iris is just, they were making her the girl that wasn't interested in Barry. It wasn't interesting. And now that I've seen Daredevil, I want to see Iris get a legitimately really good storyline, because, of course, what they're doing with, now I can't think of her name. You guys know what I'm talking about. Deborah Ann Wolf's character on Daredevil, what they're doing with her character. I can't think of her name right now, but what they're doing with her, I feel like they need to do that with Iris, because now they have some, major competition, because, Daredevil is better than the show, but I still love the show. Nonetheless, I still love the show. So, basically, I know that's Marvel, that's DC, but honestly, that's come out recently. I know a lot of people are going to talk about it, so, basically, we then see that Eddie doesn't reveal that he knows Barry and Flash are the same, and basically Eddie tells Joe that he wants to let Iris in on their Flash secret, but Joe tells him not to, and he really is upset because, he feels like Iris should know, because honestly, I do understand what Eddie's saying. Everyone knows except her, but here's the thing, Iris is not as smart as them, she doesn't really need to know, and who knows how she'd react anyway. She probably wouldn't take it very well. Just knowing Iris, I don't think she would take this secret very well at all, and it's not going to end well for anyone, really. It's not going to end well for anyone, and I think telling Iris is just, it's not going to end well in the end. That's really why they can't tell Iris. So, basically, after this, we see, after this, basically, Barry's about to tell Felicity about Reverse Flash, but then Eddie barges in, and he asks Felicity what he should do about Iris and his rough patch, and Felicity suggests he's telling Eddie that they can't do that, and basically he really wants to do something about Iris because they're not really on good terms right now, him and Iris, and he wants to fix it somehow, and I'd like Felicity suggest. And I love Felicity's line where she's like, but this is Starling City. I thought everything was great in Starling City. I thought that was really funny, and I love the part where she's just like, I can't deal with more drama now. Oliver's going to the League of Assassins, Laurel's the Black Canary, and Dia's trying to save Malcolm. I thought that was really funny when she said that because it's just showing how different these two shows are. However, at the point the Flash is, this is becoming as dark as Arrow, honestly. The stuff that's happening in the Flash, it's no longer just a fun show, which I love, and Felicity suggests a double date with herself, Eddie, Iris, Barry, and Ray. So, Barry's kind of fifth wheel here because he has no one, so technically Felicity has two guys, which I thought was kind of funny, so I'm like, this really isn't going to go well. If only Barry had Linda, this could have been, a lot less awkward, but of course he doesn't have Linda. So, at Star Labs, Ray says something that triggers a memory in Cisco, causing him to remember his encounter with the Reverse Flash, and I thought this was a very well done scene, because the way they did this, I love seeing, because obviously Cisco, he's gonna think about things that Wells told him, and now that he knows about him going back in time and everything, and what he still remembers it, which I like seeing, because of course, Cisco remembers what happened, and it's causing him to remember his encounter with the Reverse Flash that was seemingly wiped from time. And I'm surprised that Cisco still remembers this. How does he remember this? Maybe Cisco also went back in time. Maybe when Cisco died, he went back in another time. Who knows what could have happened? Because obviously Cisco died in that timeline, so how would he know what happened? I don't understand that. But I definitely feel like there's something else going on there where we don't know, though. But I thought that was really well done, and those scenes were amazing. I'd love to see more of those kind of scenes in The Flash. Those are awesome. But the flashback is cut short when Caitlin picks up a report of another bee attack, and the Flash races to the swarm building, but is overcome by hundreds of bees who can form shapes, and they quickly subdue the Flash and carry his body outside the building, where Joe finds him, and Barry enters a heart attack, and that was insane when that happened. I was like, wow, this... And I really like that the metahuman in this episode was very strong. Honestly, it was more powerful than Barry. These bees were so powerful, and for a while, I'm like, is Barry allergic to bees? I thought that Barry was, going into, allergic reaction, and he's not, though. He's just, it's really strong, and basically, Wells is able to save the Flash by achieving a remote defibrillator in a suit, and you still see this look in his face, Barry doesn't really know if he can trust Wells right now, and he doesn't really know why Wells is helping him, because honestly, why is Wells helping him if he wants to take him down? So, Barry and Joe return to Star Labs, and Cisco takes blame for misdirecting the Flash and allowing him to get stunned, which causes Barry to ponder Joe's earlier words about Cisco. And I thought this was really interesting when we saw that, because of course, Joe told him that he may think that Cisco and Caitlin are working with Wells, and honestly, it kind of makes sense. I mean, just by hearing that, it does kind of make Barry suspicious, and especially how carefully Barry is thinking this out, which I really love seeing. That's something I definitely really enjoy this episode, is how Barry is, how carefully Barry is thinking about this. He's definitely is thinking more about, Wells and Cisco and Caitlin, and I really do love that scene. I thought that was really, really good they did that. So, basically, this causes Barry to ponder Joe's earlier words about Cisco, and the gang must leave for their double date, however, leaving the rest of the team in Star Labs with one of the killer bees. And why didn't Barry just go with Caitlin? Like, that would have made things, like, so much less awkward. Like, it really would have. Cisco then visits Joe. He asks Joe what's wrong with Barry, saying that Barry hasn't been himself lately, and Joe waves it off, saying that Barry's just worried about Reverse Flash. He's obviously not going to tell Cisco about this, but this triggers another Reverse Flash memory in Cisco, and this makes him panic, and he leaves, and he's just seeing all these memories, and I don't know how he exactly is seeing these, because he seemingly died in this time period, so obviously he has no idea what's going on either, and I think it's really well done the way they're doing that. They're really starting to use him as a great character, not just for comic use. This is how Cisco should be used every episode. I don't want to see Cisco just be the guy that names metahumans. I mean, it's awesome to see him do that, but just seeing him now getting these flashbacks, I think it's awesome that they're doing that, and the fact that they're doing that, I think is really cool, the way they're handling that. So at the double dates, +1 dinner, because that's what it is, Barry is fifth wheel, and in a restaurant that Ray decides to just buy his billion, and I thought that was really funny that Ray just bought the restaurant. Iris and Eddie passively, aggressively argue over their trust issues because Iris has no idea what's going on, but Barry can't focus on anything. He's feeling really ill and excuse himself, and there's just so much going on. I mean, so much going on. He doesn't really know if he can trust Caitlin and Cisco. The whole bee thing is going, which is probably, like, the least of his worries. The killer bees, that's, like, the least of his worries right now. But between not knowing if he should tell Cisco and Caitlin about the Flash, and knowing, about Wells and everything, not knowing if he can trust, not even knowing if he can trust Cisco and Caitlin, there's just so much going through his mind, and I love this scene. So, Felicity finds out and follows, and we kind of get a scene that, is identical to the scene of episode 4, and I really love this scene because episode 4, that's what made episode 4 so good, was that scene that Felicity had with Barry. We get another one of those here, and I love that. And Barry then tells her that he knows that Wells is the Reverse Flash, and he shares his theory that Cisco and Caitlin may be helping Reverse Flash when they return to the dinner table. Eddie and Iris keep fighting, they keep on fighting, and basically Eddie refuses to share a secret with Iris, and Iris leaves dinner early, saying that she'll be staying with Joe, and I thought they were going to break up in this episode. I really did. I mean, it really seems like it's going to get bad between them. So, Felicity gets an emergency call from Star Labs where Cisco, Caitlin, and Wells flee from the killer bee. Flash races over and captures the bee before it can stun anyone. But once it's captured, they release that the bee is actually a robot, and naturally the robot bee comes with a camera. And as it records and that makes sense because this bee was just really strong. I'm like, how can a bee be that strong? Now it makes sense. It's a robot, and probably that's how it was able to give Barry a heart attack. That's probably what it did. So as it records the gang observing, the bug-eyed bandit watches them from her base, and the team cross-references the bee's victims where they find that they worked at Mercury Labs, and basically Wells goes to see Dr. Tina McGee at Mercury Labs and asks what she may know about the two victims, and we see Tina McGee again, which I thought was great to see. And basically he asks what she may know about the two burn victims and, mechanical bees, and Tina figures that murderer may be Brie Larvin, an old Mercury employee who invented the bees before Tina fired her for missuing them. And Joe then says that Tina will be her next target and asks her to be safe. So, basically, they're really worried about her, and I thought that was really good. And, of course, Joe and Wells, I thought their dynamic also definitely is going to change. Because, of course, now that Joe knows the truth about Wells, definitely their whole thing is going to change. But Joe does a very good job of not knowing what's going on. So, back at the restaurant, Felicity tells Barry to trust his Cisco and Caitlin despite his hesitance, and Barry seems to take her advice, and I really liked her line there. Again, she's talking about how he needs to trust them because they're part of his team, and without them, they're nothing, and I thought that was really good. So, Barry seems to take her advice, and Barry returns home to find Iris, and she asks what Eddie could be hiding from her, and basically, Iris thinks that Eddie might be cheating on her, but I like what Barry says, that Eddie is a good guy for her and that he wouldn't do that, and that Eddie's probably just dealing with a really ugly case and would rather not talk about his dark work. And I really like that. I mean, he's not trying to say that, oh, Eddie's a terrible guy, and I like seeing that. He's actually telling her that, no, Eddie's a good guy for you, and he's not going to hurt you like that, and you shouldn't be worried because he's good for you. And I really like that he did that, because who would have known that Barry would have done something like that? I mean, Barry, to me, it seemed like he wanted nothing to do with Eddie. Just to tell Iris that, I thought was really good, and I love that. But now that we know that Barry, that Eddie knows a secret, I really want Barry to tell Iris. And of course, in that other time period, he already told Iris, so he still really wants to tell her. Obviously, he still wants to tell her. I mean, that changed so much for him. She kissed him. She confessed her feelings for him. And the problem is now, Barry, Eddie and Iris are together, and Eddie knows, but Iris doesn't. So this really has ruined a lot of things for Barry. A lot of possibilities could happen. Iris could, find out at the wrong time. I'm just really worried about how Iris is going to figure out, because I'm pretty sure Iris is going to figure out by the end of the season. If that showed anything, that time travel episode showed anything, it's that Iris is going to find out by the end of the season. I don't know how, but in some capacity, she is going to find out, and it could be good or bad. There are pros and cons that could come with this, and it just has to be a matter of how they actually end up handling this, because if they handle this good, then it could end up really well, but it could also end up really shitty. It just depends on how they really handle this. So I'm interested in seeing how they do end up handling this. So inside Star Labs, the captive killer bee is reactivated by Bree, and again, Emily Kinney is awesome in this episode. She was such a badass villain, and I loved her character. So she's reading the bees' internal directive, and Wells finds out that Bree's swarm of bees are heading to Mercury Labs to kill Tina, and Ray and Cisco dub Bree the bug-eyed bandit, and Ray offers to save Tina since his arm will protect him from the bee stings, and Barry will pursue the bug-eyed bandit from her remote location, and Bree's about to murder Tina with her remote bees, but the Atom arrives and lures the bees away, and Ray loses the bees and crash lands into a van and that Cisco's driving. And when the Flash confronts Bree, she summons another swarm of bees, and Flash runs from the swarm, but they pursue him doggedly, and luckily Felicity intercepts the bees' radio frequency with her impressive hacking skills and shuts them down. Again, I've said before, Felicity's like the best hacker ever, so she knows what she's doing. But it's not over yet. One of the bees, still attached to the Atom suit, strings Cisco. Cisco goes into shock, and the Flash race is over. I thought Cisco was going to have like a really weird flashback again. I just thought it was going to trigger something, but it didn't. And he restarts Cisco's heart using the super vibrations of his hands, and I thought that was an awesome scene. I love that, and that was awesome. So the next day, and I also love the part where Ray's like, yeah, team up, and I thought that was just awesome. I love seeing Ray reference team up, and also knowing what's going to happen on Arrow, because if you guys didn't see the promo, Ray is going to join Team Arrow, which I think is awesome. I can't wait to see how that happens in Arrow. I mean, especially after seeing how good he is at being the Atom. I can't wait to see how it works out in Arrow. I think it's going to be awesome to see. So the next day, Tina McGee visits Barry to apologize for not taking the CCPD's protection, and Barry used the opportunity to ask her why her and Wells' relationship soared, and this, I thought, was a very well done scene. I definitely enjoyed this, because she basically explains how after Wells died, he became a different person, and of course, she doesn't know that Eobard Thawne took his place, and she doesn't really know any of that. As we know, these two were together, and they had a really great relationship, but after, Eobard Thawne killed Wells, then basically after that happened, he completely changed, obviously, and I really love that scene, because now Barry knows that not only he is, suspicious, but she also is suspicious, and it seemed like he was gonna tell her. That seemed like he's probably gonna tell her, but he doesn't tell her, obviously. He's not gonna do that to her. So Joe enters and says that he knows that Cisco, he thinks that Cisco is innocent, and Barry says goodbye to Felicity and Ray, who heads back to Starling City, and Iris visits Eddie at his office again, and basically, I thought it was a good scene when he said goodbye to Felicity and Ray, and basically, Iris visits Eddie at his office again, and says that Barry has vouched for Eddie's recent distance, but Iris gives him the ultimatum that if Eddie doesn't tell her what's going on, she's gonna break up with him, and she leaves Eddie to let him ponder his decision before making it, because she doesn't know if he really wants her to do that, and I understand what Iris is doing. My only worry is that I feel like Eddie's gonna be, forced to tell her here. It just seems like from this scene that, she's gonna make him tell her. She's gonna be like, tell me or I'm leaving you. That's what it seemed like she was gonna do. And I really hope that's not the case, because I don't want these two to break up. I like them together. I like, what Barry said to Iris. I think that was great. And honestly, Barry and Iris at this point, I see him as friends. I don't see them as lovers right now. I see him as friends. I see them as, just him giving her advice. I honestly really like Iris and Eddie together. I think it's been a while since I think it's taken a while for me to like them together, but after this episode, I really like these two together. I think Eddie's really good for her, with him wanting to tell Iris, and he seemed really shady to me in the beginning of the season, so just to know that he is as innocent as he is, I think I really do like them as a couple, and I think it's great to see them work this out together. I really hope they do work this out, because I don't want to see them break up. I really don't. Now, do I want Barry and Iris together? Of course I want Barry and Iris together. I just don't really want them together now. I feel like now's just the wrong time. We're in season 1. There's time to get them together. It's like Felicity. You don't need to, get them together the second that they're introduced. They didn't get them together in season 1 for a reason, because Felicity was just introduced, and this is like the Flash season 1. It's going to take a while for Iris to find out. Do I think Iris is going to find out who Barry is this season? Yes. I think she's going to find out about the Flash this season, definitely. I don't know if she's going to find out, though, that Barry loves her, things like that. I think that's all going to come later. We'll see what happens, though. I don't think we're getting a repeat of the time trial episode. I don't think that's going to happen. So, Barry and Caitlin meet Barry and Joe at Barry's office, and I thought this was a great scene. I love this, and basically, they think that they're going to a karaoke thing, basically, but, Caitlin can tell that they're not going to a karaoke thing, and Barry has something to tell them. He lets them in, and I was very happy to this, because I was hoping they'd do this. He tells them on his secret investigation, says that Reverse Flash and Wells are the same person. Caitlin's not convinced, but Cisco says that he's experienced dreams where Wells is a Reverse Flash and kills him, and that seemed to have changed her mind. When the entire gang on board, basically the final investigation into the Reverse Flash begins, and that's how the episode ends. So now everyone knows the truth about Wells, and it's gonna get crazy, and I can't wait to see what happens. So there's a lot to talk about, definitely. Let's talk about Cisco's weird dreams he's having. How is he having these? I don't understand. Is it triggering something? Did he actually not die? I kind of feel like Cisco didn't actually die. I feel like he was, he thinks he died. I don't think Cisco actually was killed. I just feel like maybe he... I definitely feel like he, maybe Cisco didn't die. Maybe he was just reborn in this new time period. I kind of feel like that's what's going on, because clearly those memories are triggering something. I don't know how they are, but somehow Cisco is starting to remember things, and I really love that. Is Barry going to tell Tina McGee what really is going on with Wells? I feel like he really wants to, but it's just really bad timing. How's she going to react to this? She's going to think he's probably crazy. I mean, it seems like a really out-of-this-world story. So he has to be careful with how he tells her this, because I don't really know if she's going to think he's sane. She's probably going to think he's crazy, and we'll see how that works overall. As I said, I love seeing Ray and Barry team up. I can't wait to see how that is in Arrow. I'm looking forward to that. Barry and Felicity, I honestly would want them to go at some point, but Felicity is happening this season, and I'm fine with that happening. I think it's time for it to happen. Eddie and Iris, as I said, my only concern is that I feel like Eddie's going to tell Iris the truth. I don't want her to find out that way. I want Barry to tell her, because if Barry really is her friend, he will tell her, and my worry here is that if Eddie and Iris are getting close, she's going to try to break up with him, and he's going to be forced to tell her the truth, and if he does, that's going to end up really badly. Do I think that Barry would be mad at Eddie for doing that? I don't know. I just feel like he definitely probably yell at him, but I don't think he'd be necessarily mad at him more than, what are you doing? This is going to get you killed, because I just don't think Eddie is going to be as careful with Barry's secret as well as, Caitlin and Cisco have. I don't think he's going to be as careful with it, so we'll see how that works out. I love that everyone already knows. It took so long for everyone to find out in Arrow, but that's because Arrow's such a bigger cast. I mean, The Flash is like 5 major people. Well, let me think about that. Barry, Eddie, Iris, Joe, Caitlin, Cisco, and Wells. There's only 7 people in The Flash, but Arrow is like 10, and there's a lot more characters, so I can understand that, but I'm just surprised that already a lot of people are finding out, and pretty much everyone knows at this point. I'm just really surprised about that. Let's talk about what else there to talk about. I really like seeing Felicity and Ray and stuff. So I like they used them for comic relief. I thought that was a lot of fun. I definitely really enjoyed that. But I'm really looking forward to these final 4 episodes. They're gonna be amazing. I mean, they're gonna be awesome. I can't wait to see how this all works out. I mean, finally everyone knows, and finally we're gonna start to get some sort of investigation into Wells. I really want to know more about what's going on here. More of what Eobard Thorne wants, because Barry's still very confused on how can Wells, be against him, but want him to, run very fast and want him to succeed in that speed. What exactly does he want? Now, we know that Wells wants Barry's speed. We know that he wants to destroy him and things like that, but Barry doesn't know that, so I'm wondering how Barry's going to find that out. That's going to be cool to see. You can already tell this is starting, I'm not going to say it's destroying Barry, but it definitely is starting to ruin Barry a bit. I mean, he's focusing too much on it. He's focusing a lot on it, and by Felicity's advice, I like what Felicity told him, that he needs to be as calmless as possible, and he needs to be careful what he does here. Because I feel like Barry's going to tell Wells straight out that he knows who he is, and it's going to be in completely the wrong way, and it could end up terribly, because Wells is someone you don't mess with. If Wells finds out that Barry knows a secret, he's probably going to do what he did to Cisco. Will he kill Barry? No, but he's going to try to. What he did to Cisco, he would probably do to Barry. I definitely do see someone dying. I see someone dying, and I hate to say it, but I think it's going to be Eddie. I really do. I mean, Eddie now knows Barry's secret. I don't feel like he's going to be as careful. I feel like he's going to tell Iris, Barry's secret, and A is going to die by reverse flash because he's going to tell. Now, he does not know about that yet. He does not know that Wells is reverse flash. So, is Barry going to tell Eddie? I mean, he doesn't really have a reason to, but Eddie is involved in this investigation, so is he going to tell Eddie the truth? We'll see what happens there. I think that's going to be interesting to see if he does tell Eddie, but overall, guys, best episode of the season. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. I absolutely loved this episode. I can't wait for next week's episode. I mean, this season is just delivering so much, and just best episode. I love this episode, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which I'm not looking forward to my next video, because it's the series finale of Justified, and again, I told you guys I don't want the show to end, but hopefully it's really satisfying, and I will see you guys for my next video, which will be for the series finale of Justified, so I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.